All right, good morning, everybody. It is 9:04, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We have a quorum of 6 here. First order of business is the election of chair and vice chair for this year, for the next 12 months. So my term is up soon, so I'm going to not put my name in the hat for chairman going forward, but I will take nominations. Let's start with chairman.
I nominate Luke.
Okay,
Second.
we got a second. Anyone else want to be considered for chairman? Okay, so we'll have a vote. All in favor of Luke as chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So Luke is the chairman. What about vice chair?
I think Brittany would be a good candidate.
He said Brittany would be a good candidate, but Brittany's not here.
She can't turn it down.
No, she cannot. That's a good point.
Well, I'll make a motion for Joe Self to be vice chair.
Okay.
When is my time up? Okay. I was thinking I'm almost up too.
I haven't had a
As long as
second.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to make Joe Self the vice chair. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, that was easy. Joe's our vice chair. So with the changes, I am going to give the mic to Mr. Urick here and move over. Look at this. I get a padded seat. Do I need to change seats? You want me to stay where I am? All right. You can stay where you are, Luke. Okay, good.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit your remarks to less than 3 minutes.
And we have nobody signed up for public
No
comment.
public comment, okay. So we'll move on to consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda may require a public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one public hearing. Has everybody had a chance to review consent agenda?
Are the minutes available? Do we have the minutes? Are they in the packet? Perfect. Okay.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
So Travis, motion, Candy, second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll move on to regular agenda. First item is conditional uses. Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to City Council. Case number 1 is CU 2434, 216 West 5th Street, single-member district number 3. A request for a conditional use to allow a retail sales and service use, both personal service and entertainment services oriented businesses within light manufacturing zone district at 216 West 5th Street.
Good morning, Planning Commission. Thank you, Board Chair. Aaron Vanoy, Planning and Development Services Director. This is a conditional use for a subject property here at 216 West 5th Street. A large, from the outside, just look like a warehouse, has formerly been a warehouse, but now they're wanting to go into a retail sales and service use. That is, while in our ordinance, it talks about some very specific language about personal service and entertainment services, but really it's a gymnastics gymnasium that they're going to be doing some different things there for that. The current zoning is light manufacturing. The vision is downtown, which that's important, and we'll show you that in just a moment. This is in single member district number 3, Mr. Harry Thomas, and it is in the downtown neighborhood. So here are the future land use and the zoning map. So here on the left, you can see that this is, you can just see the subject property there with the little red pin. That is within the downtown vision plan. And so in the vision plan from 2000, this area, along with the core downtown, would slowly start turning to downtown, more downtown-oriented businesses. And then, of course, you see Houston Hart that kind of cuts across here, and then to the north of that goes into some different areas from there. Right now, this is incorrect. It's not heavy commercial. It's actually light manufacturing. So just want you to be aware of that. And you can see it is a kind of a large swath. You can see that Palmer's is right here, and then some of these businesses that front on Bryant, particularly the electrical supply, and then there's a propane company, and then these warehouse districts that kind of come down here on 4th and a few small spots on 5th. But there are a number of vacant properties in the area. We did mail out our notices required by our ordinances and state codes. We did send out 22 of those. We did receive 4 back in opposition and 0 in support. You can see that 3 came from residences that are fairly close to this property, and then 1 from a warehouse property over here just off of 4th Street, which is adjacent. So what's our rationale is to look at the impacts of this conditional use and how it impacts the other land uses around it. In reality, the land uses around it are higher, usually higher impacts because of light manufacturing and warehousing than what this retail sales and services component would be. And so that's where I said the impacts are less land use and more development related. It's more specifically about this actual structure and what they need to do to get the structure up to some potentially certain codes and ordinances to do what they need to do. It is a large building, just slightly over 14,000 square feet. And based on the occupancy of that structure being an assembly type occupancy under the fire codes and building codes, it may trigger fire suppression, which is a development cost. And I'll go back to some maps in just a moment to explain some more of that. We know that there has been some construction done intentionally by a contractor without permits, so we know we've got to get that cleaned up. From the outside, parking is a challenge because it is a small lot, but we also have the philosophy in our Planning and Development Services Department is that parking shouldn't be the only thing that prevents a business, particularly one that's adjacent to downtown and has the vision of moving to downtown. So we think we may have found some solutions there, as well as gotten some information from the property owners that they have worked through some solutions themselves. Another concern is the railroad crossing. It's an active crossing. While it's not majorly active, it is a spur that goes up through some areas that delivers some manufacturing goods to and from the main line. And then there's some drainage issues, and I'll kind of show you some visuals on that. The main impact for drainage could be during drop-off and pickup, but again, we all know we live in West Texas. That's not a major concern. 90% of the time, it's the times that we have significant rainfalls and issues that's when that becomes an issue. So here I'm just going to start through some series of pictures. This is looking at the front of the building. This used to be an overhead door, has now been built in. You can see there's 2 passage doors there, but obviously the railroad is fairly prominent in this area. And you can see that they have some concrete pad here for parking. There's an old loading dock down there that's a different elevation, and it's hard to see, but right through here on that edge and through here on that edge is some drainage features, but I have some additional photos for that. Here's looking to the east. Again, this is just standing right on the edge of the railroad. And I really took this picture just once so you can see how kind of close that is to the property and then what it looks like going down that way. You can see over here on this side, that's where the spur comes across and goes down, but there's no real development except for the opposite side of the railroad. Here's just the parking area that we do believe they can fit some parking in, particularly their ADA parking spaces to meet the front doors and a walkable or accessible ADA pathway there. Here's some of the drainage area. It's very interesting that you can see the edge of the road there, and then you kind of compare it to the edge of the road that's further back here. It does narrow right in that area because of the drainage, and so that kind of restricts flow of traffic at times. Here, standing down in the drainage, you can now kind of really see, okay, there really is a pretty good elevation change there for the drainage. And the only reason we bring it up is that as this is a business that probably is going to have drop-off and pickup for students that are going to classes, at times this could be, whether it's dark or whether it's been wet, it could be a little more treacherous than normal. And the further you park back this way, the more you encroach upon the railroad. And so that's all just considerations to be thinking of. Here's kind of that bigger expanded view. You can tell that really ends up being almost like a detention pond. When it's heavy rain, doesn't mean that happens all the time, but it's just something to be considered of it. This is across the street. You can see here it has really good curb. There's a little bit of deteriorated curb there, but it actually, along that street is actually pretty good curbing. And I say that because as we try to work with businesses in our downtown, we try to find ways that they can use on-street parking. And on this southern side of the road, there is good curbing. It's not like they're going to pull up into the dirt or the grassy area. There is curbing, and we do allow those types of things. So we feel like that's also an alternative solution. They may have to work logistically to, all right, well, what's the safest way for parents or students or however to get across the street, but that's something I think they can work logistically through their business. So I put together something that we would say these would be the conditions that we would try to ask our business owners to do to obtain their conditional use. So this is just an overhead. Of course, this is their property. You can see right here, we've talked about their ADA parking, that they would put some ADA parking right there by the front door. There's plenty of maneuvering space. While there is a very wide right-of-way, we believe there's plenty of space to put 2 or 3 parking spaces there so that they are able to do that. If they choose to do some parking over here, we would work with them as far as right-of-way, but that may not be optimal for all the time. They may have to just work that out. We would ask that they do some marking on the curb, that they work with the city to do some marking here to say that there's no parking within 25 feet of the railroad, just so that it's very clear for the public that they shouldn't be parking that close to the railroad. They are working on an agreement with this property owner over here. We would ask that they would do 10 paved parking spaces. Then they would have some kind of ADA connection that would come back to their front door. Now, if they have a back door along here, we would accept that as well. I'm just not aware if they have one or not. They could probably enlighten us on that. The other thing is I would ask that they do something that's on a temporary basis only when they're operating, whether that's cones or signage in a 5-gallon bucket or whatever it is, to say, okay, there's no parking past whatever that line is, because this is state-owned land, and I just don't want them to get crossways with the state, to be honest with you. I don't think we need anything permanent. I don't think we want necessarily a fence. I think we just want something temporary that when they are doing classes, they can move out, move in, something that makes sense to them. And then again, you can see that this long area along here is available for parking. I do think there are some options for parking in this area as well, particularly when they're doing drop-off and pick-up for a number of their students. So I've talked a lot about parking. So this is a very large structure. So under that large structure, it would require right at 34 parking spaces. We don't think that based on their business type, they need 34 parking spaces all the time. And so between the 10, the 4, and then so that's 17 total parking spaces. So that's roughly 50% of what they would need. And that's allowable in Section 501 of our zoning ordinance to reduce that down to 50% because they still would have some parking on the street. They may choose to park down here. Again, they've got to cross the railroad. I would let them decide that, and the parents of those students decide, is that the safest way, or do they use other additional parking? With that, your original staff report, we did have recommending denial. We have since gotten more information and talked with the applicants. Other staff have talked with the applicants, and we've kind of come up with these conditions that we would recommend approval of this conditional use based on these conditions. And so the first one is talking about provide on-site and off-site parking. And so we're talking about the 7 on-site paved parking, that there's potential for the 3 in the front and put some on the side there, an additional 10 off-site. They do have the requirement for 34. It would require at least 2 ADA spaces at the front, one of them being van accessible. They would work with the city to mark no parking along the curb line adjacent to the railroad for 25 feet going away from the railroad. They'd provide an ADA path from the off-site parking to the business access, whether that's at the back, the side, or at the very front, depending on where they actually have additional doors. They would need to apply for and secure a building permit that meets the 2021 International Building Code and the 2021 International Fire Code, along with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing codes, whatever is required based on those codes based on occupancy. If occupancy triggers a fire suppression system, they would need to find a way to meet that. And number 5 is, while operating, provide cones or temporary no parking signs to prevent traversing across the state-owned property. I'm going to go back to a couple of images, maybe at the very beginning. Here. So let me get to maybe a cleaner one right here. So there's a water main through here. There's also a water main through here. If they needed a fire suppression system, there's the potential to come down the alleyway there, or they could come down this way to that corner as well if they needed to connect to. There is not a water main here. I bring that up because this is in the Tiers North district. They are eligible for some funding if they chose to apply. And fire suppression is one of the high priorities for the Tiers funding. So that is a potential option for them to provide that. They would have to just kind of figure out with their engineering services of what's the most logical place to connect if the fire suppression is triggered. The information we have today, we believe it would be triggered, but if there's floor plans or other things that come forward through the building permit that change that, then that may be the change. And so just wanted to let y'all know of that as well. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions that we can. And I do believe the property owners, business owners are here to speak as well.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Anybody have any questions for staff?
You said the water mains, you showed us those locations. Where does their water come from now? Do they have water in the building?
There is a small 2-inch galvanized, according to the maps, that's in the alleyway that comes through. So we believe that's where they get their water service for just their potable water. It may or may not be large enough for a fire suppression system. That would just have to be up to testing and pressure and flow.
Okay. And you said this is in the downtown?
Yes, sir.
And-
It is in the vision plan as being downtown. It is not currently zoned Central Business District. It's
Okay.
currently zoned light manufacturing. Let me see if I can get back to these. So you can see this large kind of pink area. This is all downtown. This currently on the right side is all mostly light manufacturing. But you can see the types of business. As you kind of get past 3rd Street, then you start getting into more of the downtown feel. But we do feel over the next 20, 30 years, this area will turn more and more downtown. And even as you go towards Chadburn to the east and Oaks to the east, there's more downtown feel there. And then as you get back to Bryant to the west,
I
you
just
get
know
more downtown.
downtown parking is an issue everywhere downtown.
It can be.
And so a lot of times they waive that, or it's not a,
There's not a parking requirement for downtown zoning, correct?
Correct. Central Business District, there are no parking requirements for Central Business District zoning.
And just for background, this is an area that in prior discussions, prior meetings, probably within the last year or so, that there have been discussions with the staff about rezoning this area to downtown. It's met with some opposition. Palmer Feed obviously is right here. They're not real interested in being zoned for downtown for what they do. But I do think there are some structures in this area that would be suitable for redevelopment and that considering this for downtown zoning at some point in the future might make sense.
I think that is certainly for consideration, and if you look particularly on these 3 blocks here, there are a number of properties that are still kind of vacant, and to have light manufacturing in that small of a lot size, that may be preventing them from moving forward. Central Business District does allow residential housing if that turned into residential or whatever. Obviously, we have, I think it's Window Depot down here, which is more of a, not necessarily a heavy manufacturing or anything, but there's certainly a commercial, maybe heavy commercial. And so is there a way to mix this area to allow certain things to blend together? Again, those are all private property owners, and so we as city staff have been fairly hesitant to push forward with something that comes in there, but I think that's for consideration in the next 5 years to decide how can we help this area grow.
I mean, personally, I think this type of use of an abandoned building in this area of town is positive. I think it's a good repurposing of the building. As long as we can make sure that it's safe and obviously there's some developmental challenges that you're going to encounter with any of these buildings that were built and put in this area along the way. But I think we just have to try to find a way to kind of make some concessions and work through that. And I think you guys have done a good job of that. Anybody have anything?
The only questions I had, there were 4 in opposition.
Yes, ma'am.
Are some of them here to speak, or can we hear some of that?
I'm not sure if they're here to speak, and if they are, I hope they will come up. But this one is from a residential, and they own a rent house, and says the occupants are complaining about noise and traffic and people walking around at night. It is already open and no parking except on the street. And so their concern is again, and it put in parentheses, loud music. So I think their concern, and I'll get back to, you can see here, it is a large structure that's been there for many, many years. I don't know the exact construction date, but it's been there for quite a while. But you can see the residential area that's right around. Now, the challenging part, obviously, they're by a large manufacturing facility that makes noise. They're also by a large highway that makes noise. Will that increase the traffic here and potentially here? Yes, I think it could. But we are in what we would consider kind of a downtown area, and so certain times of the day, there may be increased traffic. There could be conditions on hours of operations, but again, I think a gymnastics facility probably by 10 o'clock at night is over with. I mean, they're not going late into the night. That's just not their business model. I also don't think, and that will be kind of for them to decide what their future is. Maybe this is a place to get started, and then maybe they're able to find another place that's a little larger, and this turns into, just an accessory use at some point for their gymnastics program. Because at some points, maybe they're adding dance or cheerleading or other things, and they need more space, or maybe they're actually doing some kind of dual meets that they invite another team to come over and they do small competitions. Well, this facility probably isn't quite adequate for that, and hoping to find a different facility within town that would help. The others did not, these two they just said they're opposed. They did not put a reason why. And so I suspect it's very similar, comes down to noise and higher traffic. And I think everybody recognizes that parking is going to be a challenge. And so I think the conditions that we've placed of them doing some parking and finding a way that they're not parking on areas that they shouldn't be, I think that's a good solution to try to repurpose this building into a functional building that's back into being utilized.
Anybody else have anything for staff? Ray, do we have any public comment on this one? Okay,
Yes.
so I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
So, I have Heston King first.
If you would please
No, that's perfect.
state your name and your address or single member district.
Okay. My name's Heston King. Me and my wife Kelly, we're the owners, and we actually live in Odessa, Texas currently. So just since it's up there, I do want to address the 10 parking with paving. So currently we have a lease that's ready to be executed with the owner of that, so that would allow us to use that as parking. So I will chalk this up a little bit to a learning experience for us. We're not big in the development or building or anything like that, and so right off the bat, we didn't really know what we were doing. As of late, really as of Thursday and Friday of last week, we finally got in touch with some of the right people, and so they're gonna hopefully steer us in a better direction moving forward. Some of the things that I did want to address that he had just brought up. Currently, the building is loud. That's because it's pretty much empty. So right now, as of the only thing that we've done to the building so far was there was a firewall built. We thought it was being built with a permit or with whatever was needed to make that happen, but I guess we weren't having that done by the right person. So in addition to that, we also have foam insulation. So that's the only thing that's been done. So our other, like I said, we live in Odessa. That was our first cheerleading gymnastics gym, and so that gym already has walls that are lined with foam to help with the sound. So it's roughly the exact same size, oddly enough. But so if you stand on the outside of that building, it's as if nothing's going on inside. And so that's the same plan that we have for this building as well. Obviously, I don't think anyone wants to stand outside a real noisy building or anything like that. But in addition to the parking and, pretty much everything else that needs to happen inside the building, those aren't things that are obviously our expertise, but we just kind of got linked up with an engineering firm here in town. And so I think they're going to have the answers, and they're going to know, the ins and outs of what exactly we have to do in terms of not just parking, but restrooms and just everything to essentially to bring us up to code and all those things. So we don't, we actually appreciate the drawing quite a bit. That's extremely helpful. So we're like, oh, okay. So it is our hope to, come into a compliance to meet every requirement that there's to meet. Unfortunately, we just haven't done so yet. So we're even like I said, we're even with an engineering firm now that's, and so we're taking those steps into getting, engineered stamp plans and doing everything the right way. So aside from that, all I'll tell you is that back in 2020, we were reached out to essentially to take over a cheerleading program that y'all had here in the city. And it wasn't really going well. I think part of it was probably COVID and things like that. And so we stepped in and we decided to take over this program and stay in 2 hours away and with a leap of faith type situation. And so since then, it has grown quite a bit. We were up until recently for 4.5 years, we were next door to a bar, oddly enough, which was kind of funny. And so, but it's a really good thing, and I feel like it's had a really positive influence on a lot of kids here. We've got a great group of kids, not just from San Angelo, but from Water Valley, Grape Creek, Wall, even towns I don't really know how to say the name. But anyhow, it's something we really believe in. We believe that we teach lifelong skills in terms of teaching kids to honor commitments, to and that working hard isn't just an old lesson you hear from your parents or grandparents, And so I don't know. I love what I do. I'm a cheerleading and tumbling coach, and along with my wife, we couldn't imagine doing anything else. And so it's our hope, like I said, as long as we're going to be here in San Angelo, that we have a positive impact and that we're something that y'all want around. So I think my wife will talk to you in a little bit.
Heston, I have a couple of things.
Oh, absolutely.
The business that you guys are opening here,
Yes.
Is it gymnastics or cheerleading, or both?
Yeah, well, I would call it more tumbling and cheerleading. So
Okay.
we don't do, y'all have a pretty successful program here that does like the bars and beam and like
Yeah.
the gymnastics style stuff. We overlap a little bit on the tumbling, teaching kids how to do, back handsprings and tucks.
Okay.
But aside from that, we do competitive cheerleading,
Okay.
which is kind of on the newer side of things, so.
Well, we are, our community, I think, is very proud of the gymnastics program at our high school, and I think it's wonderful to have a business like you guys come in and provide enrichment and earlier development for those kids to keep that program at the top of the state. So we're excited that you're here.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No?
You don't have any problem doing the things that they're asking?
No, I mean, I think this is,
No headaches, heartaches, pains, or?
no, the parking and stuff seems, pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So, yes.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Eston.
Thank you.
I have Kelly King next.
I'm Kelly King, and I also live in Odessa. So I feel like it was kind of covered from the beginning through everything that Heston covered. One thing that I was going to add to this drawing up here, which is super helpful, is we have talked about putting a door in right there where it says for parallel with paving. There's not a door, right in that area. So I feel like that would greatly eliminate like any dangerous drop off and pickup. So if we have the parking paved back there and we have a paved walk, the parents would come in from, I'm not good with what streets or what, I don't know what that street is over there. Is it Martin Luther King?
It is MLK.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so Martin Luther King, if parents came into the parking from that side and then we just used that side of the building for drop-off, pickup, and parking, I feel like that's kind of the safest thing to do and answer to all of this. We didn't really plan to use like the drainage area. We don't really feel like that's very safe either, but if it was like an option, we were looking at that. So I know it had been talked about. Other than that, I feel like my husband kind of talked about everything that I was going to say, so I was hoping I got to go first, but yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like we're bringing something positive, or we've been here since 2020. We were renting until very recently. We've grown every single year that we've been open, athlete-wise. We took the kids to their first competition yesterday. We drove here from Cedar Park last night. Almost 5 of 7 teams won first place, so it was great.
That's awesome.
Thanks. When we look at the area, one of the things I had in my notes was, there's a McDonald's right by us. Concho Valley Gymnastics is a 2-minute drive from us. All About Signs and Graphics, who we've used to do our signage, is a 1-minute drive. There's a bus station, a coffee shop. All of these things, we just feel like we're in a good area. We feel like when we looked at this building and we spent a lot of money on this building, we wouldn't have done so if we felt like, it wasn't a good thing and a good place to be. So I feel like we've kind of covered everything else that I can think of. We have our lease here for parking. We brought that with us, so we tried to be as prepared as we could for this in the short amount of time that we were kind of thrown into this. So I don't know if you guys have any more questions or if we've kind of covered it all.
Any questions?
I just had a quick question for
Yes.
you. I'm familiar with the old location that y'all were at, and
Okay.
I feel like the parking there, this is much improved from the parking
For sure.
that you had at the old location. So, I mean, I'm sure you're planning on growing your program, but this is really just a comment, but I feel like you guys have a lot more availability of parking in this location that
Yes,
you did
for
the
sure.
last.
Yeah, and that was kind of something we've discussed too, and I don't know if it's because we were just renters, but nothing was ever brought up about parking at our old location, and we had 0 parking. We are primarily a drop-off pickup facility. We don't really have, sorry, we don't really have a lot of use for parking, but we understand, we have to do what's required, so this is the plan, but yeah, most people just drive up, drop their kids off, come back when practice is over, so.
Anybody else have anything? Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly.
Appreciate y'all.
Okay, and then Jimmy Rose. Do you want to still talk?
Good morning. My name is
Morning.
Jimmy Rose, and I got the addresses behind this building, 205 West Street. That's where I live at, and
Yes,
a
sir.
couple of empty lots there. I'm all for what they're doing, but I'm also concerned. Yeah, I got a big mouth, don't I? Okay. I'm also concerned about the building, the inside of the building. I was over that building, I was overseer for 25 years. I kept checking on the building. I had an alarm go off every time the door opened and everything. And the last owner, I told him about a grant for the city that could help him improve it. Well, he put a restroom in. And the guy that put the restroom in, the floor is 8 inches thick with concrete. And he put the restroom in, he cut the concrete, but he did not water it down or put a barrier around that. And that building is full of silicon. And I went and talked to the fire marshal. And, well, I can't tell you what he said, but that's hearsay if I say that. That's all hearsay. My concern is that silicon, it takes years for it to take effect. And I see a lot of kids in that building, bunch of kids. And it might be 12, 15 years before they start getting sick. Because that silicone, you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, and you can't taste it. And that building was built in early 80s, 1980s. That's when they started outlawing asbestos. And that concrete, it's got that asbestos in it. But once it breaks up, it floats in the air. And it floats. It will not go away. When it get on you, you get out. Anybody that's been in that building if that building hasn't been cleaned, it's on your clothes. When you go to your car, it's in your car.
Yeah.
When you go home to your kids or the kids that's playing there, they go home, they got it on. You put it in the washing machine, it won't get rid of it. You have to have a suit to go in that building. I had my stuff in that building. I left it. I didn't want to touch it. But, I'm just concerned about the kids, because I see the little kids, by the time they get in high school or ready to go to college, they might have kidney disease, they might have cancer. And whoever goes in that building, you got it on you. The owner's been in that building, they got it on them. If they came to that building before they came in, they brought it in here, they brought it in here. That's my only concern. I'm all for it. I don't want to close it down. I just want to see safety.
Yes, sir.
That's it, especially for the kids. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
King. Thank you very much.
Todd Cawthorn?
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, I sell real estate. I'm with Scott Allison Real Estate, and I sell mainly commercial property. And I've been selling a lot of stuff downtown, and most all of those old buildings down there are getting converted into retail or something kind of clean. We're cleaning the area up. I feel that this is a good thing for the area. We need stuff for the kids here in town. And all of these old buildings, I got another one I'm working on right now. It's going to get and it's in bad shape, and it's gonna get cleaned up, and it's not very far away from this one. I feel like a conditional use would be good for this, and the city needs it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Todd.
I think it's Diego Sheridan.
Good morning.
Morning. Diego Cardona, Cristobal, Texas. Only thing I'm going to say is the Kings have been such a blessing for the community, for the female athletes. I've been with them for the last 4 years. What they do to girls and empower them. One thing, they hit up on a subject of Cedar Park this weekend. My daughter's been with them for 3 to 4 years now. She's competed with cheer, and this week was the first year she's won a championship. So with that being said, the amount of work that she's put in with them, and they've kept going and going to her to finally achieve that level, has been amazing. As far as any temporary fixes, parking curbs, paint, I'm going to be glad to assist them to make sure that gets done immediately. As far as no parking signs, those get put up immediately. Just knowing that I'm here to support them in any way I can so we can get this goal accomplished. And the amount of traffic that's brought into downtown, I know when they drop off their kids, they go eat, they go shop. I mean, it's just awesome what they're doing, and I hope y'all approve this. Thank y'all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Diego.
And that is it that has signed up.
Okay, so we'll close public comment and open it up for discussion or a motion.
I think this is a wonderful project for this community, and I know that this building has some challenges. We've obviously discussed some of those. Personally, I don't think the parking is a major issue, and I think the Kings have done a good job of addressing the limited parking that's available in this building. Mr. Rose's comments about the safety of the kids is, in my opinion, the most important thing here. And I think having the building department involved in reviewing and approving plans and the scope of work for the building will more than address any safety issues with the children. So I'm in support of this project. I think it's great. I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Travis, second by Mr. Self. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Before we go on to our next case, I want to apologize for my colleagues down at the end. We have two new commissioners that have joined, and I just wanted to take a second to introduce Patrick Baumann and Liz Wardlaw. So they'll be joining us now and getting baptized by fire. So with that, I'll move on to our second case in conditional uses. Sorry, Liz Albert. She hasn't been with Liz Wardlaw for a good while. So moving on to CU 2357, 306 North Monroe Street, single member district number 4. A request to revoke the conditional use for a short-term rental located at 306 North Monroe Street.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, planner. And this one is going to be very short. We just wanted to bring this forward and ask to revoke the conditional use. Technically, the year was expired in December. However, with the amended ordinance for the short-term rentals, we gave everybody a free 6 months to renew by June. And these people, as you can see in the email right here, they are not using it as a short-term rental, and there's a possibility that a few others have turned in an application or want to turn in an application, and that 500 feet would affect it. So we are asking the commission to revoke this conditional use. Is there any questions?
Do you have any questions for staff?
No questions.
Is this the owner that said this?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Sorry.
We have any public comment, Ray?
No, no public comment.
All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to revoke this conditional use of a short-term rental at 306 North Monroe Street.
Second.
Have a motion by Candy, a second by Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we'll move on now to rezonings and comprehensive plan amendments. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings and amendments to the comprehensive plan. First case is PD 2407, 4673 Cristobal Road. Request for a zone change to plan development from heavy commercial CH, allowing one framed house and one manufactured home on 2 acres out of 13 acres located at 4673 Cristobal Road. Aaron, do I understand that the applicants requested this be tabled?
That is correct. They've requested it to be tabled for 30 days to be reheard in February, and that's the current request, and we're supportive of that.
Okay, so I'll need a motion for,
I don't think, do we have to take an action on that to table it?
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
If you are gonna bring it back at the next meeting, then we do, but I thought we were just totally
Just
pulling
pulling
it and not having like a date certain that it would come back, so.
Cameron, do you mind if we just check with the applicant to make sure I understand their intentions? So I
Okay.
don't misspeak for them?
Oh,
30
okay.
days?
Yeah.
Okay, just the 30 days, so we could bring it back in February. as a
okay,
table.
so in that case, we do need a motion?
Yeah, do a
Okay.
motion to table to the next meeting.
Okay,
I'll move with that we table this till the next meeting.
Second.
Whichever
I have a
one.
motion from Joe and a second from Travis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 6-0, right? Yeah.
6-0.
All right. Moving on to Z 2417, 2401 North Chadburn. A request for a zone change from general heavy commercial CGCH zoning district to general commercial CG located at 2401 North Chadburn.
Thank you, Austin Reed Planner. This request comes out of the Reagan neighborhood. We're in District Number 4, Lisa Gonzalez's district. This is commercial vision plan, and the lot is about 0.3 acres. What we have is a request to rezone from CGCH to CG. We mailed out 20 notices. As far as I'm aware, we did not receive any official responses. Here's a look at the vision and the zoning on the left and the vision on the right. As you can see, there's residential further to the west with CGCH up and down the Chadburn corridor. And it's more or less the same thing on the vision plan as well, with neighborhood off to the west and commercial up and down Chadburn. So under our staff rationale, we think this is compatible with the surrounding area. The frontage on major thoroughfare means commercial zoning is still appropriate. The reason this is necessary, the project is undergoing renovations through our TIERS program. Part of the requirements are that they phase out the older CGCH zoning for something newer like CG. So we think that approval of this zone change would help to promote the renovation of an unoccupied property, which is in the best interest of the community. Also, we don't think there will be adverse effects on the natural environment. With that, we are recommending approval. Do you have any questions?
Do I have any questions for staff? All right, do we have any public comment? No public comment on this case. I will open it up for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. It's a reduction in intensity, and I think with the proximal neighborhood, it makes sense.
Second.
I have a motion by Travis and a second by Joe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. Subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to City Council. First case is FP 2423, Los Lomas South Subdivision, Tract 1. A request to final plat, one lot measuring 2 acres and located at 125 Los Lomas Drive in Ranch and Estates zoning. A request for approval of a variance for the 0 foot of the 6 required feet of paving width on Los Lomas Drive, and a request for approval of a variance to not construct a new minor arterial road, being the future extension of Foster Road.
Thank you, Chairman. Aaron Vanoy, Planning and Development Services Director. This is a final plat of a 2-acre tract right here that fronts on Los Lomas Drive. And you can see this red dashed line is the city limits as well as a future minor arterial, the extension of Foster Road that comes off of Loop 306 and would go across the South Concho River and then across this area, across Country Club Road. So way down the road, pun intended, this future arterial will be built. But just wanted you to know that it is adjacent to this property, and subdivision rules do trigger a improvement of that or a variance request, and so they have requested a variance. This is a ranch and estate zoning. It is in SMD number 1, Tommy Hebert, and this is out at the Lake Nasworthy neighborhood. So here's the tract. You can see Los Lomas Drive there. It's a 2-acre tract which meets our zoning standards. This back here, the city already owns it and has a right-of-way currently of 100 feet, which is more than adequate for a future arterial to come behind there. So there's no dedication of right-of-way at any point on this. Los Lomas Drive, and I'll go back to maybe this image right here, is built between 20 and 21 feet, depending on the edge of the curb. Our subdivision ordinance says that no road shall be less than 26 feet. We have, in other instances here and here in the last year, approved variances to keep that road width at the 20-foot or the 21-foot width of paving. As staff looked at this, while it is against our ordinance, it is consistent with those other properties to maintain that 20-foot paving, and that is an item that we have identified through a development task force team that we need to start looking at. If a majority of our roads are at 20 feet or some of our roads are at 20 feet and we're allowing that, then we need to find ways to allow that in our ordinance. So we're going to deal with that here sometime this spring. But for this case, staff is recommending approval of the Tract 1 of the Los Lomas South subdivision and approval of the paving variance for Los Lomas Road, as well as the paving variance for Foster Road, subject to the 6 typical conditions being provide tax certificates. Number 2 and number 3 are if they receive the variance or they must improve them. Number 4 is install any necessary utility service connections, which in this case is probably only going to be a water service connection. There are no sewers connections out there at this time. And then contact Tom Green County for septic suitability. And if a drainage study is triggered, that they would do the drainage study and make any improvements as required. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Anybody have any questions for Aaron? We have any public comment?
Erica Wilde.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open up public comment. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the engineer over the case, and I ask that you approve as presented. I did want to let y'all know that we have not contracted Tom Green County for septic suitability, so that's being taken care of. I'm working on the drainage study. That's being taken care of. So just ask that you approve as presented. Or if you have any questions, I'm here.
Anybody have any questions for Erica?
No? Thanks, Erica.
Have any more public comment? All right, go ahead and close public comment and entertain thoughts or a motion. Motion to approve. Okay, and a motion from
I'll second.
And a second from Travis. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? 6-0. All right. Moving on to FP 2424, Arden Acres, Section 4, a request to final plat, 1 lot measuring .99 acres and located at 4453 Arden Road in heavy commercial CH zoning.
Thank you. Austin Reed, Planner. This is a final plat for one lot over roughly an acre. We are in District Number 6, Larry Miller's district. We are technically in the Bluffs neighborhood. The zoning here is CH, heavy commercial, and the vision plan holds this lot to be commercial as well. Here's a look at the plat itself. It measures about 300 feet long by 144 feet wide. It fronts off Arden Road, and there's a 20-foot utility easement to the front of the property. So Arden Road to the front of the property is a major arterial, but this is TxDOT right-of-way, and it does meet all our standards. Just a quick note, TxDOT is responsible for granting access. I mention this because the neighboring property has an existing approach, which is pictured, which may need to be shared in the future. Additionally, this property is eligible for septic use. With that, we are recommending approval subject to 2 conditions and 1 note. The 2 conditions being that they provide their tax certificate and that they provide confirmation of septic permit and its functional operation, or provide plans for extension of sewer services. And the 1 note, as I mentioned earlier, was that TxDOT does control that right of way and is responsible for granting that access, so they may need a shared access easement at some point in the future. Do you have any questions?
I have one question, and I don't know that it necessarily applies here, but I believe the subdivision ordinance, does it require direct and abutting access to a public road?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so is there a situation where if they're not granted access by TxDOT, that they couldn't develop this lot?
No, I believe they would be able to develop the lot. They would
Okay.
just have the other path forward is that they would have to do a shared access agreement through the other private property.
Okay.
While they have frontage abutting a public road,
Yeah,
depending on that drainage, and you can just kind of see there's some drainage area back there, and it depends on TxDOT standards. They may allow an access. We, as the city, just can't say you can have it. It's really
Okay.
up to TxDOT.
I understand. Thank you.
Anybody have any more questions for Austin? So, we have any public comment? So,
Yes, Jack Downey.
all right, we'll go ahead and open up public comment. Good morning.
Good morning, Jack Downey with SKG Engineering. Thank you for hearing our case this morning. I think it's pretty simple, but, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those for you.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we're going to close public comment and entertain thoughts or motion. Liz?
Second.
Candy? All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0. And now we'll move to RP 2432, Poulter's Highland Acres, Tract 36, Block 1. A request to replat Block 1 of the Poulter's Highland Acres, resulting in 1 lot in the heavy commercial CH zoning district, and a request for approval of a variance for additional right-of-way dedication.
Thank you. Austin Reed, Planner again. This is a replat which creates 1 lot over roughly half an acre. This is in District Number 2, Tom Thompson's district in the Angelo Heights neighborhood. The zoning for this lot is again heavy commercial, CH, and the vision plan for this area is neighborhood center. Here's a look at the plat itself, just the plat on the left and the plat with buildings on the right. The lot measures about 144 by 150. As you can see, it fronts on Glenna Street. Right now, there are 2 existing metal buildings on site, I believe both of which still belong to G&G Automotive. So Glenna Street to the front of the property is classified as a minor arterial. It does meet our required minimum paving width of 48 feet. It currently sits at 48 feet. However, it does not meet the required right-of-way width of 68 feet. It's right now at about 60 feet. Therefore, the applicant has requested a variance to not dedicate the incremental half, which comes out to 4 feet. You should know that there are plans somewhere out there to bring sidewalks up and down Glenna, and this right-of-way may become necessary so that sidewalks aren't being built onto private property. With that, we are recommending approval of the replat subject to two conditions and denial of the variance requests, subject to the two conditions: provide tax certificate and submit a revised plat with the dedication of the incremental half, or receive approval of a variance. Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Austin? We have public comment, Ray. So we'll go ahead and open up public comment.
Jack or the owner? Which one wants to go first? Okay, Jack, with SKG.
Jack Downey with SKG Engineering. Thank you for hearing this case again. We asked for the variance mainly because I don't think they're going to be widening the road. The utilities are all on that side of the road, so it's going to be very expensive for the city to widen that road and move all of the utilities that are there. So we would propose that we would offer an easement for the sidewalk rather than dedicating right of way. They want to add on to the building, and they're going to be doing that on the backside of the building away from there, so they're not going to encroach on the road or anything like that. But again, we think it'd be better to have an easement than to give right of way.
Sorry, Jack, does granting the right-of-way affect the setbacks?
I believe there's 32.6 feet from the property line to the building currently. So if we gave 4 feet, we would still be at 28.6 feet, which would still meet the standard, I believe.
Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Morning.
Good morning.
Glad to be here, not talking about STRs, I promise you.
You and me both.
Yeah. The end game is to we want to add onto the back of the building, so we'll do whatever is necessary to meet the requirements for the city so we can get that granted towards us. And it sounds like combining the two addresses is the way to do it and pay the money to get that done. So if the 4 foot is what you want, you're welcome to it. We like sidewalks too. We just want to make sure we can still park in front of currently 1111, but it will be, I guess, the south side of 1121. So anyway, however you want to word it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions for me?
I don't think so.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does granting the right-of-way affect their ability to park or use the building or the site as they are currently using it?
The short answer is no, because there's no change of occupancy, and there's nothing that's changing. I don't like using this word, they're grandfathered in until they make a significant change. It sounds like they would still have the maneuvering space as well as parking space. The biggest concern is when the sidewalk that the grant, y'all are aware of the big grant that TxDOT gave the city to do a big sidewalk project, it will be on that side of the road. I think they have some minimum setbacks from the back of curb that the city has to meet, and therefore it might encroach into the private property in some way. And so the question is, do we get the 4 feet of right-of-way today? Do we ask for a public access easement to be done there? Because we're not 100% sure of the alignment of the future path or sidewalk that will be there. We're not requiring this applicant to put any funds or anything towards that sidewalk. We're allowing that grant to cover all those costs.
I'm looking at this image here, and there's a really large utility pole that would probably be in the way of a sidewalk. So
that's my concern too. Just looking at the site
if we grant the 4 feet of right of way, you could face a challenge just getting around that utility pole.
Yes.
And not going on private property, I think.
I think there's the potential. It's very hard to know, and I don't remember if that path is a required 5 feet, but usually they're 5 feet. That may be required wider than that, and so that's the concern of when you start having that widened, and where does it impact the private property owners? And this just happens to be a process that they're choosing. I mean, they want to plat it together so they can add to their building. The platting process is one of the processes in which we, the city, have the ability to say, well, our standard is 68 feet for an existing minor arterial. We're at 60, their incremental half would be 4.
Would granting an access easement achieve the same effect?
Yes, if it's a public access easement, yes, it would.
Okay.
It would have to list that the public could access that area as pedestrians, which I know Jack and his firm is very familiar with doing those, so that
And
can
Jack,
be
you
done.
guys, you're comfortable with going that route? Okay. Okay, thank you.
We have any more public comment? So close public comment. And any more thoughts or motion from commission?
Oh, I see what's going on. I see.
And if y'all are considering, oh, okay, looks like our engineering representative, Colin, would like to come and visit.
Good morning, Colin.
I'm Colin Baggett with Engineering Services. So a federal grant for sidewalks coming through here
Yes, sir.
would require a 5-foot buffer and then 5 foot of sidewalk. I think currently maybe there's 6 or 7 feet of space there, and there's utilities in it. So the additional 4 feet of right-of-way would allow the existing utilities to stay where they're at and sidewalk to be built behind it. And after speaking with operations, the request was for right-of-way in that it's less complicating to the process, and that's what they'll be requesting from other businesses when it's time to construct those sidewalks. So it has been funded for the sidewalks, but it has not been designed yet. So we're probably several years out from actually constructing them, but that's in the short future. But the decision's up to y'all, and I just wanted to throw that in. It was a request from operations, who is managing the sidewalk project.
Thank you, Colin.
If the motion is to grant the variance, we would ask to just add the condition of the public access easement.
Right.
That would just be a condition, if that's the motion that comes forward.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve and grant a public access easement in lieu of the right-of-way.
So a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's 6-0. Okay. I think that brings us to Planning Director's report. Aaron, what do you got?
Good morning again. I've got a couple of things to update you on. Just trying to get back to a regular slide that doesn't. There we go. So a couple of things that we talked about at the end of last year, and just giving you some updates. The Cultural District is in the final stages of draft and review. Had a great meeting with them last week, just had a couple of little tweaks to make, and then it's going to go out for final review with our legal staff, and we are ready to start having some public meetings in February. And so we'll be giving notice to that, to the area where our cultural district is being developed and what those impacts will mean. That will mean a joint meeting sometime this spring with Planning Commission and City Council. We're projecting the last meeting in March or the first meeting in April, which I think April 1st is a great day because it's April Fool's Day, and I'll get to speak a lot and the fool will talk. So, second is the sign committee. We had a great meeting last week as well. Primarily to clean up some items that were Supreme Court cases that particularly dealt with on-site, off-site signs and billboards, and then adding some language or definitions about electronic messaging signs and where those should and should not be allowed, and how they are impacted at major intersections, things like that. So that committee is meeting. They're going to start meeting weekly, and we hope to have that come forward at the same time for our Planning Commission and City Council to hear in this spring as well. We had a development task force meeting a couple of weeks ago. Two very positive things that came out of that is one that I mentioned earlier about the subdivision cleanup, about cleaning up some items there to make it more congruent with what we are making decisions here, as well as trying to update some of the language that deals with more modern street lighting as opposed to what's in there currently. The other thing is to create some kind of committee that will start looking at housing options and affordability, particularly for finding places that would maybe allow some smaller lot sizes, that would maybe allow for some higher floor to area ratios, talking really about how do you allow some more density in some parts of our town, but still maintain the integrity of our historic neighborhoods, our traditional neighborhoods that like the single family and larger size lots. How do we blend those together? But I'd like to put together a committee, and if any of you are interested in that, please contact myself or Ray, and we will certainly get you. We do know that we have some folks even here in our audience today that are that I'm interested in having on that committee, as they work very closely with our local developers trying to provide housing. So those are the three major updates that I have. The last one I have is really just seeking some advice from this board as we kind of move forward. As many of y'all know, I've been in this role not quite a year, and I'm still pushing myself and pushing our staff to improve and to do better. And so today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the subject of planning and enforcement in our area of what we do for our community. So I wrote a few things down so I wouldn't mix them up or change them as I went through. So I'll read through this, and definitely looking for feedback is the real thing that I'm looking for. So planning has many aspects. One of them is zoning, and you saw some zoning cases today. You'll hear zoning cases in the future. But zoning is the mitigation of the risks of people, property, and the community, and ultimately how each of those affect each other, those risks of people, property, and community. So what are we doing to mitigate the risks in zoning? What does our staff do with our zoning ordinance to mitigate risk to protect people, property, and the community? I bring this up because our city has struggled in the recent years, and maybe even longer than that I'm aware of, that our community from the outside, and I've been told this many times, is that you're the community of forgiveness. You're the community that says, go do it, don't go to the city, don't go and get a permit, don't look into anything, and ask for forgiveness because you're probably going to get it. And while you ask for forgiveness and not permission, that's challenging. That's also challenging for staff. It's challenging for boards like yours. And so I want to find out is, what do we do to help change that narrative in our community? I don't want people to say, I didn't know you need, and here's this blank to fill in. I didn't know you needed whatever. I think we as staff have a responsibility to do some things to help them understand that you do need certain things at certain times. In my mind, a rule without enforcement is simply a suggestion. You should kind of do this instead of you must do this. I don't think we can continue to do that practice and meet our goals that are set before us in our vision plan and our currently adopted ordinances and codes. I believe the city must perform proper enforcement to the minimum codes and ordinances. That's what's adopted, is the minimum codes and ordinances. They're not a super high threshold. We know through evaluation of our sister cities, our zoning ordinance is significantly easier than most cities. There's, in fact, cities smaller than our size, Brownwood, Bernie, some other places that have much stronger zoning ordinances, much stronger building codes than what we've adopted here. And I'm not suggesting we adopt something strong. What I'm suggesting is we need to look at how we're enforcing what we have said we want our community to be. So I say to our community, let's all work together. That's what the Development Task Force is set up for. I also say to our community and those that are looking to work in our community, know that if you're going to do improvements, you should check with the local jurisdiction. You should just check. They're going to tell you yes or no. If it's yes, you need to do something, we're also there to be solution-oriented. But we can only be solution-oriented if they come and check with us. It's hard to be solution-oriented once something's already done, because it's hard to then backtrack and say, well, it's going to cost them an extra $40,000 to change this to what would actually be the right fix. Could we have saved that money up front had they come to us? And I think that takes dedication of our staff to be solution-oriented, to look at our ordinances and find what works for business A, for housing project B, for whatever it may be. And I know that our staff is working towards that, and we continue to have work to do, but we are committed to doing that work. So what can we do differently? I've jotted down about 3 things. One is educate our community. We are working through with our public information office. They're asking us to update our website, and we as staff have to make that a priority. We've got to update our website. We've got to communicate with real estate agents. We got to communicate with developers. We got to communicate with folks that are doing things in our community so we can help them understand when they really need to come to us and when they don't. We need to be clear with expectations. It shouldn't be a maybe or a might. It should be very clear. We should do the research. We should go through the work and find out what helps. And then we also need to help understanding in multiple languages. If we have folks that are not able to communicate with us, we need the tools to be able to communicate with them so they understand what we're asking. Second thing is listen to our community. When things are not working, then change them to allow for better, easier development processes. If things aren't working, we have to listen to what our development community is telling us. If they're not coming to us because they feel like they're getting hit over the head with the book, we need to change that in some way so they don't feel like they're getting hit over the head with the book, but they understand what the minimum requirements are. And then lastly, I know our building official, Charlie Kemp, and deputy building official, Austin Ayers, are doing a great job of doing this already for their division. They're creating kind of an internal little task force about what does it really mean when you get a building violation of notice of violation. We call them NOVs. What are the consequences? What are the penalties to the contractor? What are the penalties to the property owner? What happens to that property? Is it just, hey, you're on notice and things go away? So they're really researching and going over the next few months to year to provide a real program of how to deal with those things. I encourage our entire city that deals with enforcement activities to partner with them and partner together to what is the proper way to do enforcement for planning, for signs, for whatever it may be, fire codes. We know that we have certain codes adopted that are the minimum standards. We know we have the existing building code. How can we work with our folks out there and we educate them? But then if we do find violations, we as a city have a responsibility to follow up and really enforce what those consequences are. So that's what I came and jotted down to talk about. I know it's not a popular stance per se, but I also know that we can't keep running and chasing the ones that are doing violation and neglecting the ones that are doing a good job. Because what happens is you run out of staff, and so the person that does a good job and turns in their permit, it may take them a week to get it because we're out chasing somebody that chose not to. That's not fair to those that are doing it right. And how do we work that system to encourage people to do it correctly, work through the steps, and move San Angelo forward? So that I'll be happy to take any comments, any suggestions, any hits over the head, whatever comes.
I've got several thoughts here. The first thing I want to say is that I think you've done a really good job in the short time that you've been the Director of Planning and Development Services. I think we're headed in the right direction. This is a process that you've outlined that you don't solve in a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. It's going to take months or years to see the full impact of the changes that you're trying to make. Having said that, I think a lot of these changes are very important for our community. You talked about zoning. The comprehensive plan and the zoning within that plan is also important. Giving predictability to development and an expectation of what the city wants to see in certain areas and doesn't want to see in certain areas is important. Code enforcement, asking for forgiveness, yeah, it's a problem. It's a real problem. One of the things that I've seen other communities do that seems to be effective is community walks. So you take a group of representatives from multiple departments, animal services, planning and zoning, code compliance, maybe members of the city council, and you publish that you're going to go into a neighborhood on X day. You maybe make arrangements to have a couple of roll-off dumpsters put in a church parking lot if it's a neighborhood, and you walk the streets and you knock on doors and talk to folks and identify issues, violation problems, and try to work with the business owners, the property owners to clean some of that up. I also think it would help in getting the staff more engaged with the city, which I think is an area that we've kind of fallen behind in. In terms of the requirements, I think the best thing you could do is publish them. Make them more readily available and easy to access. Do it online. Do it in pamphlet or writing form. If someone comes into your office and says, I want to redevelop this building, do you have a document you can hand them that says this is what you need to, these are the steps you need to take? Those are my major points.
I'll just echo Travis's comments on, just publicly voicing my appreciation for the things that you've already been able to accomplish in your approach, I think, in trying to get us where we need to be effective in enforcing our ordinances. And I appreciate also your comments about being solutions oriented. And I feel you make that clear. I mean, that's your approach, and I do appreciate the way that you guys do try to work with the applicants and try to find a way to make projects work. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with the lack of enforcement, and it's unfortunate to see it develop into a pattern of asking for forgiveness instead of just coming through and following through with the process as it's kind of expected, or it should be, and that kind of turns into punishing the ones that actually do follow the rules and allowing people who don't to get away with stuff. And so I think, again, to your point and Travis's point, also I think education and updating our website and making sure that people have ready access to all of the information and that the staff knows how to direct them to get there. If anybody calls and is trying to find that information is critical. And then I just think, enforcement is critical. And, inconsistencies in that. And I think in the past, I've gotten the impression that rather than focusing on enforcement, we tried to add or tweak ordinances and add additional language, and it just makes it even more of a convoluted process, and it's harder to interpret for the staff, it's harder for developers, and and applicants in general to interpret. And so I think really just trying to be as concise and clear and consistent as possible is really beneficial to everybody. Kind of my thoughts.
I agree with both of them. Solution-oriented is the key.
Yeah.
I mean, sidewalks were the big thing. But we came together with developers, with the community, and we came up with a happy medium. And now it's not as big of an issue, you know. And so I was...
Our different ordinances, our different planning process, whatever. And I think some of the suggestions already made by Travis, education is just a must. And how you do that throughout a whole city is just a awesome thought process to even think about it. But somehow or another, we've got to get the community to understand they can't just go and build something and then come back and say, oh, goodness, you mean the city has something to say about that? You can't tell me that a lot of people out there don't already know some of that. So I think the education, I think communicating in other languages is a smart thought. And I just appreciate some of the things you've laid out. And I love the idea of the community walks that Travis was speaking of. I think that would be very, very informative, and I think the community would like it.
I don't have much to add because this is my first day here, but just in my line of work, you know, I see people presented with these issues, and their thought is the city's always the bad guy. So I think if there is a way to make it more solution-oriented and the city more approachable so that, I mean, I don't know how you go about changing that reputation, but like you said, I mean, you want these people to come to you first to fix the solution or to fix the problem versus asking for forgiveness later. So that would just be the only other thing that I add.
Yeah, and I'll kind of say the same, like being new to the panel, I don't really have too much to add. But what I can add is what I've seen work in my line of work. So being in the military for 21 years and having worked through a lot of commands that have different priorities, some of the things that have worked for me is every office I've ever worked in, we've developed SOPs, the standard operating procedures, and we try to do that for each area that I've worked in. So when I was in safety, we did it for flight and ground safety, so that way we could make sure everybody understood kind of what was expected of them. And then always being transparent and open, so that way everybody understood kind of what my stance was and making myself more of a person to them. And I think that's really what the city needs. If the city can make themselves more of a person, people will be more willing to come and speak to you. Whereas if they feel like they're coming and talking to the city, they're not going to really feel open to share any thoughts with you. So that's what I would add to it.
Well, thank you for your comments and everything. It does take a team, and we do have a great team in planning, in our building permits, and in our development services areas, as well as our adjacent development folks in fire prevention, engineering, health, code enforcement. They all do what they can, but I know we all have some room to grow. We all have areas that we can improve in. I do agree the education is paramount. I do also echo Candy's of we don't need to be heavy-handed. We just need to do things the right way and reset the expectation for our community, because it is for our community that we're doing this for. It's not for anybody sitting here. It's not for us as staff members. It's what is our community today and tomorrow, and how do we help that community. The biggest frustration I have is potentially when a contractor goes and sells maybe an elderly couple a carport and it gets built over a weekend, and then the elderly couple is the one that gets punished because it wasn't built correctly. I hate that.
Yep.
I really hate that. How can I change that narrative? How can we change that process so that really innocent citizens are not being penalized for the actions of others. How do we do it? And that's not an easy thing to figure out. That cities deal with that all the time of trying to figure that out. But I think it's time for our city to start addressing some of those things. And as Travis said, it's going to take months and years, but we have to start. So I think that's all I had today. So I will turn it back to you, Chairman.
There's another line item for follow-up on administrative issues. Was there anything else you needed to add with that?
Administrative?
No? All right. Our next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin Monday, February 24th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in the east mezzanine of City Hall at 72 West College Avenue. So we'll be back at our old normal meeting spot in City Hall.
There you go.
The March PC board meeting is scheduled during spring break. So if that is a problem with a lot of board members, we can push it a week. However, I need your feedback to know, or is that still good?
I personally would like to push it back.
Probably be best. You better find somewhere to go. Okay, so I think that's it for the agenda. Unless you guys, Aaron, you got anything else? No? Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Joe?
Candy?
Candy. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. But we are adjourned.